So, let me start with this. You find yourself at a crossroads in your life.
Well, coming up to 73, yeah. I mean, next year is going to be my 60th anniversary in the music business. I started in 1964. Unfortunately, those pesky Beatles, they're going to be celebrating their 60th anniversary of conquering North America. So any sort of thing I had planned is like right out the window now.
Was your idea to conquer North America or just Canada?
It's actually a good story. My brother Gary came home, who had been into Elvis and Little Richard and all that stuff, a few years older, and he had the Beatlemania album, and it's the one with the half silhouette Robert Freeman cover. I remember looking at it. I was 12, and I went, "They look stupid." And he dropped the needle on the groove. It Won't Be Long came on, and my life changed instantly. I mean, I knew what I was going to do for the rest of my life, and for some fortunate reason, 60 years later, still doing it. It's probably the same for you, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the impact of cover art.
Oh, of
Album
course,
covers then, because you got the art on the front side, then you got the liner notes.
And you read it.
Yeah, so if the music only played about 33, 35 minutes, but you never put the cover down.
Never.
You kept picking up even after the play, and you may go back and play again. You never put it
And then
down.
Sgt. Pepper comes out, and it's got the lyrics in it, and everything changed again. Trust those guys, to be the innovators of pretty much everything that we know now, and still doing it, So
Now,
God bless them.
the Beatles were one thing. Now, was there a band that there was this? Like the Rolling Stones, Keith Richards has a sound,
Oh yeah.
and it's an identifiable sound. I heard him the other day just acoustically play "Honky Tonk Woman."
I heard that
the
too.
opening string. You heard the opening string. Does that get you in the heart?
Oh, of course.
Okay. Now, for a lot of bands, there's not a sound. I mean, bands play, but there's somebody in the band on an instrument that plays a certain way. Now, was there somebody, or was there a style of music or something that said to you, "I have to have my own sound. I have something in mind. I hear in my head. I've got to get down and go out and play with"?
I've been mining the Rolling Stones and the Kinks and the Beatles and everybody since I was a child. My mother turned me on. My mom worked at the Friars Tavern as a co-check girl. So my education musically when I was young was to go to Saturday afternoon matinees and watch Ramsey Lewis, or watch Dion, or watch Levon and the Hawks, and on and on and on. All these incredible bands that became legends. I was a little kid, sitting with Rick Danko, and he told me I wanted to be a drummer like Ringo. He said, "No, you got bass player fingers." And then he sold my mother an amplifier. Very smart. But no, I was out still playing in the street at just turning 13 when my mother said, "Gregory, come on in here and see these guys." And it was the Stones on the Mike Douglas show. And all of a sudden, my focus shift from She Loves You to Route 66. And then I joined a blues band at 15, and the guys in the band who became Whiskey Howl, the guys from that band, they said, "The Rolling Stones didn't write these songs. These are by guys like Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters." And they gave me a crash course in Chicago blues in that when I was 15 years old, So it's just been this it's even now, you're still learning. It doesn't matter how old we are. Our brains are a sponge, still absorbing.
So the Stones are out with a new album, and you must go back and think when they did the Tammy show.
Oh, loved it. I went to the theater to see that.
James Brown, they're on before James Brown.
Yeah.
And everybody said they're going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Well, of course, Jagger instantly started all that stuff right there
Started
on the
doing
spot.
all the physical movements.
Before that, he was sort of standing there.
Yeah, but he figured out just by watching James Brown and watching other artists that there has to be a movement.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a front man.
But I think that was the first time that it was recorded that he started doing all those little leg jerks and shit,
Yeah.
I remember we had a Bissell carpet sweeper, and my mom would come home from the Friars, and I'd have the first Stones on album with 2 spoons, and the Bissell carpet sweeper was my, and look at how it's going to be. And she said to my dad, "Ted, look at him. Look at him." He said, and he goes, "He looks like a fucking idiot." But my dad came around.
Well, my dad said more Stan Getz.
Well, yeah, my favorite.
Blame it on the bossa nova instead.
Oh, I love Stan Getz.
So anyway, when you got out there and you got your first record deal and you played your first concert in front of a large audience, how did that impact you?
Well, any audience was great for us back then. I mean,
But to see a room, maybe 10,000 or more people.
well, with Flood, we were lucky enough. Like we did one of the first Nathan Phillips Square dates, and they said there was 50,000 people there. And I just remember that it was, I mean, you look out and you're 20 years old and there's 50,000 people that are there to see you. Not me necessarily, the Pillies probably. But I remember we had a song and the lyric was, my, look at the sky. And Ed was pointing up, Ed Pilling, and there was a plane going over with a big banner that said, Flood, wish you all a happy summer. And it was planned right for the moment that Ed would go, my, look at the sky. And all these people look up and then this huge roar. I mean, heady stuff, We played some gigs with 10 years after at an arena right after Woodstock.
And also, when you read accounts of the Beatles or the Stones or basically any band, first time they hear their record on the radio.
Well,
now the Beatles pulled off the side of the road.
Yeah. We phoned in so many times that the guys at Chum knew it was
no
us. Listen, can we hear that Flood record, please? But yeah, you're right. Especially if you happen to be there when they play it.
Yeah.
I remember when I would hear it on the radio, on the AM radio in the car, and it's still a thrill. I mean, what I used to love about the Flood hits, and we had 10 of them at the Pillings. I had nothing to do with the writing back then. In fact, that's why I left, because I wrote a bunch of the songs you're going to hear today, and they wouldn't do them, They became staples for me. But I loved when we got the Chum charts. And there'd be Flood with Cousin Mary going up to the top 10, and around it would be a Beatle or a Stone or somebody that we idolized, Elton John, somebody. And you're going, Christ, we're on the charts with these guys.
Yeah.
For as limited as it was.
A lot of times you would say, oh God, I'm like 4 notches above Tom Jones.
I don't think I ever said that, but I think it was in there. That look at this, they're at the bottom of the chart and we're in the top 10. I mean, incredible memories. And somebody actually sent me a Bristol board. I didn't know this, but my song "Pretty Bad Boy" was on the Chum chart for 28 weeks. That's a half a year, and it got as high as 5, I think.
And it's also a good residual check.
I sent my mom and dad to Europe on that royalty check.
Wasn't that great, though?
It was the best feeling.
Was that K-Pack at the time, right?
It was K-Pack.
It came back at the time. Yeah. So I remember I got my first check. And actually, I was with HP and Bell, Paul Hoffler, and he got me advance. Gave me the chunk of money. I went out and bought a piano, a really nice piano, a couple bikes, a chunk of hash, I bought a nice jacket for the wife.
Nice. That's a good check.
What did you do with yours?
Ounce of Coke.
And Coke. Man, I'm glad I didn't know you.
Oh, a lot of people say that. I used to be fun. No, that's actually later on.
That's later on, but I'm talking about your first one.
First check, it would have been pretty good. I probably still bought drugs with it. My daughter's sitting over there. No, I didn't, honey. She read my book and she says, Dad, you didn't really do all that stuff you wrote about. I said, no. It's like, it was either Ronnie Hawkins or Oscar Wilde said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. I'm going to put it to Ronnie.
So this was actually Greg Allman's memoir.
Like the same thing? Yeah, right. I don't know. I mean, I didn't, the first major thing I did with a royalty check was send my mom and dad to London for 2 weeks and to Paris for 2 weeks.
Fantastic.
And it was great because it was Christmas Eve and all their friends were over, were all rich and stuff. And I got them a wicker basket and there was like a baguette in it. And, then there was a book on how to speak French and there was a couple of berets and they kept going, what is this? And at the bottom was 2 tickets to Paris, right? And that was pretty good. And I recently got my mother's diary about that trip. And I haven't read it yet, but I'm anxious to read what they did.
A lot of getting ahead in this industry, getting anywhere, is a lot of luck involved.
Oh.
Now, have you ever looked luck in the face and said no, and just mess it all up?
Dude, my whole life has been every time I got to a crossroads where I could go this way and there'd be like wine gum trees and fairies and pots of gold and stuff.
Right.
Or this way and I could fall into Bill King's lap. That's the way I went, was to the left. Yeah, every time.
Every time.
Every single time.
And
I'm surprised I don't have any feet left to shoot.
But there's always this thing about, there's a lot of artists in the industry, or a lot of people who have come through this and had ambitions and stuff, and when faced with that door open, they just steered another direction, and then that door closed.
There was always something that came.
Yeah.
I mean, Morris Gibb came into the studio when they were playing my Act of Godo album, and he heard the overture that we'd done, and he heard Chantel, and he got Albie Galutin and the other guy that did Saturday Night Fever to come in. He said, listen to this guy's music. And then they said, he doesn't need our help. He's doing fine on his own. And they split. And then there was a glitch in the tape. And he said, well, this is great. He says, you can stay with me. I want you to meet Robert Stigwood. And we'll redo this with a 70-piece orchestra. Yeah. And I said, I want you to shut up. I said, your machinery has eaten my master. I want you to leave. And then they played it again, and there was the glitch. And then it went into the one, it was a piece of tape that the engineer had not edited out.
Okay.
Oh, Morris. And he goes, I don't want nothing to do with you. So did I spend a week and meet Robert Stigwood and go on to Fame and Fortune and hang out with the Bee Gees? No. I shot myself in the foot again.
But that's kind of what it is. But you kind of learn from that, but then you also have something to write about.
I've written 2 books so far.
So this is the thing, in interviewing people, when I'm interviewing somebody and they're the next coming thing or so big and they're 21 or 22 years old, I usually have nothing to work with but a press release.
Oh, yeah.
Saying
different for guys like us.
Well, they're already contemplating down the road. They're already assigning a life to this person.
Yeah.
And the success to them. And it's not there.
Yeah.
But when you talk to somebody who's actually traveled the road and actually, had a few accidents along the way or stuff like that, then you have the opportunity to sit down and write a book, and the book can be very funny. It can be telling. I recently interviewed Rick Emmett, and Rick was talking about the fact that, he had to have the family and have lawyers go through it because he likes to speak openly.
Yeah, of course.
And I think when it comes to books and books like this, it's great to speak openly, but how open should you be?
I told the complete 100% truth at my own peril.
Right.
I mean, every rotten thing that I'd seen, and everybody that did something rotten, I called them up to a man and woman, and they'd say, if you print that, I'll sue your ass. And then a half an hour later, they go, print it. It's a great story. So they all their sins went into the book. You're going to write a book, it might as well come from. Plus, you can always remember the stories because that's how it happened.
The best was I've got these fake lawsuits that they pull up online.
Yeah.
And they sent it to me. They said, I don't even know you. And then I had to send them a photo back of us together working together.
All right. Okay.
No, but I mean, that's how some people think they're protecting the legacy and they kind of overdo this stuff. But
I always check with the people first. When I did the Mike Bullard show, when Travels with My Amp, the first book came out, he says, I haven't read the whole book. He says, but I've read enough. Has anybody sued you yet? And I said, I wish they would. I'd sell more copies.
Yeah.
That's the way I looked at it. Make it as lascivious as possible and see where the cards fall.
All right, with the books behind you, and you're thinking about, okay, I'm at a certain age now. What can I do to keep myself relevant and keep myself interesting and give back and make it entertaining?
I'll tell you what I can do. I can host a television show from the Redwood Theatre and do my best Johnny Carson impression.
That's great.
Or you can end it there if you want. But
Greg, good stuff, man.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely.
Well, when you get interviewed by a pro, it's easy. Okay.
Are you ready?
Where were we?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just talking about the music.
Okay.
For today.
Oh, and I have a new album coming up.
Okay. Greg, you got this, you put together something here at the Redwood Theatre. It's only since 1914, since, like you said, Benny Goodman and Walter Winchell and some of the greats.
Marx Brothers.
The Marx Brothers, yeah. That Duck Soup was filmed here.
Was it really?
Yeah, of course not.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
me going.
There's so much we can invent on this thing. What have you invented or created for this, for the occasion?
Well, first of all, this format, calling it the Greg Godovitz Orchestra and Chorus, when in reality it's myself on acoustic guitar, which people aren't used to, original drummer, Marty Morin, who's a phenomenal percussionist, now is playing conga drums and singing and has things on his feet. And Steve Jensen, who played with Cochran and Zappa Costa, playing electric guitar, 3-part harmony. And then we have a special guest in Gene Hardy, going to play saxophone at some point. I guess by the time they see this, it'll be well known anyway. We had a 6-piece version of this. It did sound like we had a keyboard player and a chick bass player, and I was playing electric guitar. We did a gig, our first gig like this with this format was in Bala, and it wasn't at the Key, it was at the Legion Hall. And at the end of the gig, it was a legitimate standing ovation. People were screaming and laughing. And I looked at Marty, I said, you know, we've just discovered our new audience. It's our old audience who are now old people sitting in chairs. And we decided, let's do matinees. I mean, I don't know about you, I don't want to go out at nighttime anymore. First of all, if you see me in a car after it's dark, get away from me, because I can't see anything. So I like to be home before the lights go out. So the way I look at Sunday matinees, you can go to church in the morning, you can come to the show and hear me confess my sins, and you'll still be home in time for 60 minutes.
That's true. That's a good one. And you have a new album?
We actually have a Godo album coming out. It's a best of. We couldn't call it greatest hits because we only had one, Pretty Bad Boy, 28 weeks on the charts though. So we have a best of. There's an Eddie Kramer remix of Under My Hat. There's a couple of songs that people have never heard that we mixed from scratch. We re-recorded Pretty Bad Boy with Marty and as many of the original guys as I could get. The only thing I couldn't get was the 4-year-old because now he's 42 years old. So I'm just a pretty bad boy. Wouldn't have made any sense. You know, it was cuter when he was 4, you know. It's a really good package. It's coming out on vinyl. It's coming out on CD. It's coming out in December.
Could we just finish up just on Bob Sarini for a minute?
Yes, we can.
Okay. One of the funny incidents I ever had on radio is you and Bob Sarini.
I know exactly where you're going.
So this is at CIUTIC about 2016. You guys were coming in early. You made it on time for the 9 o'clock. Segarini wasn't there. He shows up 20 minutes into it, and he's got a bottle of bourbon.
Oh, yeah.
But it's pretty nasty. It's just the ruins.
Yeah.
It's just the bottom. It's been drank for
Yeah, he drank the rest of it on the way down.
On the way down, in shot glasses.
Yeah.
And he wanted all of us to celebrate on air.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't do it.
No.
But
Bourbon at 8 o'clock in the morning.
That
is
last
ridiculous.
40 minutes, we laughed so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My last conversation with Bob, he was now in the hospital and he was on his way out and he knew it. All we did for 2 hours, I wish we could have taped it. All we did was make each other laugh uproariously for 2 hours. And even my gal, because Bob and I had a falling out for a couple of years. And it was at my 65th birthday party that my gal said, he showed up and I was surprised to see him there. Mm-hmm. And we just, water under the bridge. Nobody makes me laugh the way you do.
None of that
Let's just get it on.
matters, does it?
None of that matters.
When you're around somebody that knowledgeable, that funny, and they mean well.
And when he wrote the foreword to my first book, that one line that he wrote, "This is the heartwarming story of a boy who grew up to be a boy." I mean, it's just so Bob, man.
Great stuff.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Redwood Theatre, come to this place.